It feels like it belongs to someone else.
Falcon, after inheriting Captain America's shield, finally faced his first mission. Falcon raised the shield as he approached, spread his wings to block the out-of-control helicopter. Then he caught up with the terrorist organization's helicopter. Immediately after, the shield penetrated the cockpit door of the enemy aircraft and knocked the pilot into the sea. He successfully rescued the hostages on board. However, the terrorist leader chose to go down with the ship. The hostages' lives hung by a thread. How would Falcon save the day? Could he take on the new role of Captain America? In the sky, a U.S. military transport plane was hijacked by the LAF organization to rescue the kidnapped liaison officer. The U.S. sent Falcon, who had inherited Captain America's shield, to intercept, and asked him to keep a low profile while ensuring the officer's safety. With assistance from ground tracking, Falcon successfully caught up with the target aircraft. However, the pilot had already been killed. The criminals had taken over the plane, and the situation was bad. Falcon immediately activated Plan B. He activated the red wing on his back and used a laser to cut open the cabin door. At high speed, he flew into the cockpit and kicked away the attacking criminals. Other fearless people keep coming to attack, but they were also knocked down easily by Falcon. In the midst of the intense gunfire, Falcon was still safe and sound, but a bullet unexpectedly hit the enemy in the pilot's seat. At this point, the plane lost control and began to plummet rapidly. Falcon quickly killed the armed attacker. Finally, he found the liaison officer deep in the cabin, just as he was about to take him away. He did not expect that. Not all the enemies had been destroyed. Falcon quickly engaged in a struggle with the enemy. In the chaos, the enemy recaptured the liaison officer and used a flying device to jump out of the cabin with him. Falcon immediately followed. An enemy shot at him in mid-air. Falcon was not one to back down. He agilely dodged the bullets and accelerated toward the enemy. He ripped open the enemy's chute. The enemy ahead quickly flew into a canyon. The space inside was narrow, which was not friendly for Falcon's large wings, but he flew straight in. Then he followed the enemy team like a bat out of hell, still continued to tail the enemy group. But just as he burst out of the canyon, he was intercepted by two helicopters. Falcon skillfully avoided them. At the same time, he deployed Red Wing to attack. Launched a rope to take out a machine gunner. Red Wing followed up by releasing missiles to destroy the rotors. He successfully broke free from the helicopter's interception. However, at that moment, the enemy's backup aircraft had already arrived. Falcon immediately kept up with it. Inside the cabin, he engaged the enemy in battle once more. But the enemy was not interested in a prolonged fight. They jumped out of the aircraft again with the liaison officer. Falcon leaped and tossed a bomb behind him. The plane was blown to pieces in the explosion. As they were about to enter the Libyan Air Defense Identification Zone, Falcon's flight propeller malfunctioned. He had only 90 seconds left. This was not good news at all. The liaison officer was transferred to another helicopter. They then fired a tracking missile at Falcon. Falcon urgently dodged it. The enemy's bombardment gradually made Falcon feel exhausted. He narrowly avoided being hit by missiles several times. The mission was about to fail. Suddenly, Falcon had a moment of inspiration. He drifted in the air closer to the helicopter. The pilot hadn't reacted yet, when a missile came whistling in. At that moment, the ground commander urgently called Falcon, ordering him to retreat immediately, but Falcon didn't want to give up. He sped up and chased after the last helicopter. Finally completed the rescue mission successfully. Then he hurried back to the capital, Washington, to attend the memorial service for Captain America Steve. Although Falcon received his recognition and held the shield, he still felt unworthy of such a heavy responsibility. In his heart, Captain America could have many faces, but the shield only belonged to one person. Once the symbol was lost or belonged to someone else, the person who gave the symbol its meaning would become worthless. So he returned the shield to the government. At that moment, Falcon had no idea that he would soon regret this decision greatly. After losing his identity as a superhero, Falcon returned to an ordinary life. He joyfully returned to his hometown, but found a heap of troubles at home. His sister Sarah's business was in dire straits. planning to sell the fishing boat to relieve the pressure. Falcon felt heartbroken, but was helpless. However, he was also living quite frugally and couldn't afford to help Sarah through her crisis. Still, he promised Sarah that he would find a way to secure a bank loan. The next day, Falcon and Sarah went to the bank. The staff clearly recognized Falcon and excitedly asked for a photo. However, when Falcon asked for a loan, the staff immediately changed their tone. They stated that Falcon hadn't had any income for the past 5 years and that his bank account had 0 transaction records. Thus, he did not meet the loan requirements. The bureaucratic tone left Falcon speechless. He could only leave in disappointment. It was the first time he felt very powerless. Superheroes can save people from peril, but facing the challenges of ordinary life felt a bit overwhelming. His sister also urged him not to waste his efforts any further. Meanwhile, the Winter Soldier was having a terrible time. After the final battle, the Winter Soldier's mental state was on the verge of collapse. He had the same nightmare every night. In the dreams, he was killing for Hydra. Even innocent passers-by became victims under his gun. This was a knot in his heart that he couldn't undo. One day, the Winter Soldier woke up again from a nightmare. The psychologist keenly noticed his mental fluctuations and repeatedly emphasized that he was just a civilian now, as long as he followed 3 rules: not do anything illegal, not harm anyone again, and strive to make up for past mistakes. Then here came a new life. However, the Winter Soldier stated that all his actions adhered to these rules, yet he still found no peace within himself. Nightmares continued to haunt him. The psychologist suggested that he try to open up and accept others' kindness. The Winter Soldier seemed to half understand after hearing this. After leaving the clinic, he found his old friend Nakajima and invited him to the bar for a drink. Seeing that someone was treating, Nakajima readily agreed. They hadn't even had a few sips of the drink when Nakajima suddenly talked about the past. He had a son who was brutally murdered years ago while working abroad, but the murderer had never been found, and even the cause of death remained unknown. The Winter Soldier's expression darkened nearby because he knew the truth. Nakajima's son was the innocent young man he had killed. He was deeply aware of his heavy sins and wanted to make amends to all the innocent people he had harmed. That evening, the Winter Soldier knocked on Nakajima's door. He saw the photo on the altar, which was of the young man he had killed. His expression grew slightly dazed, but he quickly regained his composure. After handing Nakajima a stack of money, he turned to leave. On the other side, Falcon was still troubled about the loan. At that moment, his colleague Torres suddenly called. Recently, there was a criminal organization called the Flag Smashers that was causing chaos around the world, but they always managed to escape capture, especially their leader, who was exceptionally capable. Falcon suspected that the leader might be a superhuman, but before he could think it through, the news on the television caught his attention. It turned out that a new Captain America had appeared. Although Falcon had returned the shield, the government still needed a new Captain America to keep the country safe. Thus, a political puppet was born. Watching the new Captain America holding the shield on the screen, Falcon felt an immense sorrow in his heart. The honor of Steve, whom he had fought so hard to protect, was finally used by the government for show. At that moment, the Winter Soldier also saw the news. He looked at the fake on the screen and confronted Falcon, questioning why he had handed the shield over to the government. Faced with his friend's anger, Falcon felt a mix of emotions in his heart. He certainly regretted it deeply. He was equally heartbroken by the government, but the shield had already been transferred, and he felt powerless at that moment. Moreover, the most important task was to destroy the Flag Smashers organization. He informed the Winter Soldier of his upcoming mission. After hearing this, the Winter Soldier decided to go along with him. However, these two didn't stop the whole way. They continually argued on the plane. Upon reaching their destination, Falcon was the first to jump out of the plane using his flight gear. The Winter Soldier, of course, was not about to be outdone, just about to follow. He suddenly realized that the plane was flying at a low altitude, making it impossible to use a parachute. But he certainly couldn't admit defeat. He made a no-parachute jump from the plane. The outcome was predictable. After crashing through countless branches, he landed heavily on the ground. This drew relentless laughter from Falcon. With Red Wing's guidance, the two of them successfully reunited. They then sneaked in an abandoned building. 8 inside, 8 members of the Flag Smashers were smuggling goods, and there was a hostage hidden in the vehicle. As the truck drove out of the building, The two immediately launched a pursuit. The Winter Soldier had amazing jumping ability, leaping onto the truck in one swift motion. However, when he opened the truck's door, he found it filled with drugs and vaccines. In the corner, there was a female hostage. The Winter Soldier tried to get her out, but unexpectedly the woman suddenly smiling strangely. Then he was kicked away. It turned out that this hostage was posed by the Flag Smashers. The Winter Soldier realized he had fallen into a trap, but it was too late. Suddenly, two hands appeared and pulled him onto the roof of the truck. The attacker was incredibly strong, and the Winter Soldier was powerless to resist. He was pinned down and unable to move. Fortunately, Red Wing arrived just in time to assist, but unexpectedly, the female Flag Smasher was also tough. She jumped up right where she stood and slammed Red Wing down hard. Falcon quickly followed up with a kick that sent the woman flying. The two then engaged in combat. However, the enemy was too powerful, and Falcon was pushed back step by step. He was soon subdued by them. At that moment, a shield came crashing down from above, knocking the enemies back. The newcomer was the new Captain America, John, along with his partner, Hawking. Could their arrival turn the tide of the battle? During the fight, the Winter Soldier accidentally fell from the top of the truck. He could only cling tightly to the chassis of the vehicle, using his vibranium arm, and defended against the enemy's frenzied attacks. However, the situation was terrible. Seeing that the Winter Soldier was about to struggle to hold on, Falcon quickly dove under the truck. The two successfully escaped danger, and they realized that this group of Flag Smashers were all super soldiers. This meant that the upcoming mission would be exceptionally challenging. Meanwhile, the new Captain America was still entangled in a fight with the Flag Smashers. However, it was clear that he was no match for them. He too was kicked off the truck, watching helplessly as they drove away. The mission had failed. The four could only drive to the airport. During the conversation, Falcon learned that the Flag Smashers were super soldiers who had been injected with serum. They wanted the world to return to normal as quickly as possible, but their methods were too extreme, disrupting the existing world order. He hoped that Falcon and the Winter Soldier could assist him in completing this mission together. After hearing this, the Winter Soldier got out of the car without looking back. John could only continue to persuade Falcon. He stated that he never intended to replace Steve, but just wanted to try to fulfill Captain America's duties. He hoped that the former right-hand man of the captain could help him. It must be said that John knew how to navigate a minefield. Falcon was left laughing in frustration. Without saying another word, he got out of the car. After returning to the plane, the Winter Soldier still had the shield on his mind. He wanted to team up with Falcon to steal it back, but Falcon refused him. He didn't want to spend the rest of his life on the move. Moreover, just moments ago, they had been beaten up by a group of super soldiers, yet they know nothing of the deeper issues. Seeing him frown and worry, the Winter Soldier suggested taking him to see someone. Perhaps this person would know what was going on. The old man was named Isaiah, and he was also a soldier who had been injected with serum. The two hurriedly paid him a visit, but he was unwilling to discuss the past. Moreover, he was hostile toward the Winter Soldier. It turned out that both had once been super soldiers. Isaiah had risked his life for the country, only to be treated as a test subject in the end. He endured inhumane torture for 30 years, while the Winter Soldier had gone from killer to avenger. This made him feel a deep sense of injustice, so he exploded in anger and kicked the two out of his home. Just after leaving Isaiah's small cabin, a police car blocked their path. The officer pulled out an arrest warrant, stating that they were going to arrest the Winter Soldier. It turned out that the Winter Soldier had been so focused on the shield that he missed his court-mandated therapy sessions. Falcon had no choice but to follow him to the police station. He contacted the Winter Soldier's psychologist to bail him out, but unexpectedly, John also arrived at the police station. He continued to invite Falcon and the Winter Soldier to join his team, but they were still met with ridicule from them. Falcon remarked that John's abilities were just average. They decided to go solo instead. John, unmasking himself, was instantly filled with rage. He warned them not to interfere. Falcon was infuriated by his arrogance. He proactively asked the Winter Soldier for his thoughts. The Winter Soldier replied that the ones who knew the most secrets about super soldiers were Hydra, and the one who understood Hydra best was Zemo. He was the mastermind behind the Avengers Civil War. He was currently imprisoned in Berlin, Germany. To complete this mission, Falcon put aside past grievances. He immediately decided to seek out Zemo. On the other side, John, facing repeated setbacks, was feeling very agitated. He vowed to destroy the Flag Smashers to prove his worth. He and Hawking tracked them to Germany. They finally located the Flag Smashers base in Munich. He ordered his men to attack and take down all the enemies in the base. Afterwards, he pressed for the whereabouts of Carrie, the leader of the Flag Smashers. But unexpectedly, she didn't care about John's identity and even spat at him. John was furious, but he could only swallow his anger. Meanwhile, Falcon and the Winter Soldier had arrived at the prison where Zemo was held. The Winter Soldier requested to meet Zemo alone. He used to be a part of Hydra, so he might be able to let Zemo lower his guard. As soon as Zemo saw the Winter Soldier, he began reciting a string of codes. These words had once turned the Winter Soldier into a killing machine, but now, the Winter Soldier had long escaped that control. He had no intention of having a lengthy conversation with Zemo, and directly told him that someone was producing super serum. He wanted to uncover the person behind it, and hinted that if Zemo agreed to assist in the investigation, he would help him escape prison. A golden opportunity was laid out before them. Zemo wouldn't miss it, of course. So, the Winter Soldier created a riot within the prison. Zemo took advantage of the chaos to disguise himself as a guard and escape. After that, the three met up in an underground parking garage. After a brief rest, they boarded a private plane bound for Madrid. They were going to meet a black market dealer named Sally. She was likely to have clues about the serum manufacturer. On Zemo's request, the Winter Soldier transformed back into the Winter Soldier, and Falcon adopted a new identity. He disguised himself as the Smiling Tiger. The three arrived at a bar in the lower district. It was a place filled with a mix of shady characters. Everyone there looked tough to deal with. The arrival of the Winter Soldier attracted everyone's attention. Zemo ignored the surrounding stares and approached the bar owner, stating that he wanted to meet Sally. However, Falcon's identity raised the owner's suspicions. The owner immediately slit open a snake's belly and took out the gallbladder to put it into a drink. He gestured for Falcon to drink it. Zemo hinted that this was the Smiling Tiger's favorite. Falcon could only pretend to be relaxed and downed it in one go. However, the owner remained skeptical. Then someone came to test the Winter Soldier. Zemo immediately recited the activation phrase. The Winter Soldier followed without hesitation and began indiscriminately attacking the crowd. In an instant, the bar was thrown into chaos. Only then did the owner realize their true identities. The three successfully met Sally. Zemo inquired about the super serum and offered to trade the Winter Soldier for information. Sally immediately agreed upon hearing this. She informed them that the super serum came from a doctor named Nagel. Just then, Falcon's phone suddenly rang. It was a call from his sister Sarah. Although he tried to hide it, he finally exposed himself accidentally. Sally immediately ordered to kill a few people. The Winter Soldier reacted quickly and killed Sally first. Now they were in serious trouble. Sure enough, as soon as the three left the bar, they were pursued. They escaped into a narrow alley. Just as they were about to be caught, 2 bullets saved them. The newcomer was Agent Karli from S.H.I.E.L.D. She had once helped Steve, but for that reason, she had become a fugitive. After S.H.I.E.L.D. disbanded, Karli had fled here. She had been living in hiding. The mastermind behind it all was Zemo. Karli wished she could kill him on the spot, but Falcon stopped her. They still needed Zemo's help to uncover the source of the serum. So he struck a deal with Karli. As long as she could help find Nagel, he would apply to the government for her pardon and freedom. The next day, Karli brought them to the docks. She pointed to one of the containers and told them that Nagel was hiding inside. However, when the three infiltrated, they found it empty. Had Nagel already relocated? Zemo carefully examined the area. Sure enough, he discovered a hidden compartment inside the container. They opened a hidden door and started to explore inside. They found a laboratory. Nagel was engrossed in his experiments. It wasn't until they approached him from behind that he realized someone had entered. Under Falcon's questioning, Nagel finally revealed the truth. He had originally been a member of Hydra, involved in the research on the Winter Soldier. After the organization disbanded, he joined the CIA to continue his research on super soldiers and successfully extracted the super serum. This serum could fully activate super abilities. However, just as the experiments succeeded, they were all wiped out by Thanos' snap. He also went silent for 5 years. Recently, he joined the Power Broker to help them produce super serum. Nagel admitted that he had produced 20 vials of serum, all of which were taken by the Flag Smashers. No wonder Falcon and the Winter Soldier had been decimated by them on the truck earlier. Just as they were about to ask more questions, Karli suddenly rushed in to inform them to evacuate quickly. Just as she finished speaking, Zemo suddenly shot and killed Nagel. The next moment, a rocket struck nearby. Fortunately, the group escaped the laboratory without serious harm. However, Zemo was nowhere to be found. There was no time to search for him. The enemies closed in on them. Under heavy fire, the bullets in their guns quickly ran out. At this critical moment, the missing Zemo suddenly appeared. He shot and exploded a gas pipeline, and the entire dock was engulfed in flames. The enemies were immediately wiped out. The group ultimately escaped with their lives. After parting ways with Karli, the three continued on their journey to find the Flag Smashers. The new Captain America, John, had learned of Zemo's escape. He suspected that Falcon and the Winter Soldier had planned it, though he had no evidence. That didn't stop him from causing trouble for them. At this point, Falcon and the others have found the base of the Flag Smashers. According to Nagel's intelligence, just as they were discussing their next strategy, the Winter Soldier suddenly made an excuse to leave. He went to observe the area nearby. Sure enough, he discovered a Wakanda's communication orb. Following the orb signal, the Winter Soldier found himself in a secluded alley, where he met a female Wakanda warrior. She was also a benefactor to the Winter Soldier. 6 years ago, after the Avengers' internal conflict, the Winter Soldier stayed in Wakanda for treatment. With the help of the warrior, he freed himself from Hydra's control commands. From then on, he was no longer under their control. The warrior demanded that the Winter Soldier hand over Zemo. Because he had killed Wakanda's former king, the Winter Soldier stated that he still needed Zemo's help. He asked for just 8 more hours. After locating the Flag Smasher leader Karli, he would turn Zemo over. The warrior ultimately agreed. After returning to their hideout, the three received new intelligence. Karli had blown up an entire supply station for the Global Council. The severity of this incident was extreme. Finding Karli was now urgent. Zemo quickly gathered information from local children about Karli's next move. However, to secure his own escape route, he decided to use that intel to dangle over Falcon and the Winter Soldier. With no other options, Falcon could only turn to Karli for help. Selby and Nagel's deaths had enraged the power broker. Karli warned Falcon that they had to find Karli before Zemo did. They needed to acquire the remaining super serum. Otherwise, the serum could very well fall into the hands of the power broker. Meanwhile, Karli had obtained the super serum that she had hidden beforehand. She planned to inject it into more refugees to expand the ranks of the Flag Smashers. Karli's mother, Tanya, had recently passed away from illness. She intended to attend her mother's funeral first to implement this plan again. On the other side, Falcon and the others were also preparing to head to the funeral. However, unexpectedly, they encountered John and Hawking on the way. Upon seeing them, John immediately took on a superior stance and angrily rebuked Falcon for letting the fugitive Zemo escape. The funeral was about to begin, and Zemo didn't want to get tangled up with him for too long. He stated that he knew Karli's whereabouts. With that one sentence, John quieted down and immediately followed behind them. He declared that they must capture Karli this time. However, Falcon disagreed. He planned to negotiate with Karli on his own. As the mission progressed, he realized that Karli was not an evil criminal organization. She was trying to help refugees in her own way, but her methods were too radical and extreme. However, John was very reluctant. In the end, he only allowed Falcon 10 minutes. Falcon successfully met with Karli. With good intentions, he engaged her in conversation. He expressed understanding of Karli's helplessness and despair, but he pointed out that her methods had harmed innocent people. Falcon earnestly advised her not to go down the wrong path. After hearing this, Karli began to waver internally. It seemed they were about to resolve the issue without any conflict. But unexpectedly, John outside couldn't sit still any longer. In fact, as soon as Falcon entered the room, he had already regretted it. He was Captain America and couldn't just let Falcon take charge. Moreover, he urgently needed to prove himself. So, he disregarded the Winter Soldier's objections and forcefully barged into the room with his men. Karli thought it was a trap set by Falcon and promptly knocked John out with a punch. Then she leaped to the second floor and quickly made her escape. The Winter Soldier followed closely behind, but due to his unfamiliarity with the layout, he was soon shaken off by Karli. Fortunately, Zemo intercepted her midway. Under the pressure of gunfire, Karli could only awkwardly evade. However, during her escape, the super serum accidentally fell from her hands. Karli tried to salvage it, but Zemo got there first. Seeing a few vials still intact, he mercilessly crushed them all underfoot. While Zemo was focused on the serum, Karli's accomplices arrived and took her away. At that moment, a flying shield came out of nowhere and knocked Zemo unconscious. Following the trail on the ground, John found the last intact vial of super serum. He was instantly filled with desire. He remembered the ridicule from Falcon and the Winter Soldier. He immediately stopped hesitating and pocketed the vial of serum. Due to John's recklessness, the mission failed once more. Falcon and the others had to return empty-handed. However, John was relentless. He barged into their hideout, demanding answers. He insisted on taking Zemo to make up for his failures. Falcon naturally refused. John was instantly filled with rage. He put down his shield and prepared to fight. But at that moment, a spear suddenly flew in through the window. The 8 hours were up. The Wakandan warrior was ready to take Zemo away. Seeing this, John immediately declared that he was the new Captain America. He thought they would give him some respect, but the warrior completely ignored him. She swung the spear and knocked him down. John immediately retaliated, but the warrior gave him no chances. John and Hawking were beaten to the ground without any ability to fight back. Seeing that the warriors were about to go for the kill, Falcon and the Winter Soldier quickly intervened, but they were no match for the warriors either. In a few swift moves, they were knocked down. Even the Winter Soldier's vibranium arm was disassembled. John was also pinned to the spot by a thrown spear. In the end, he couldn't even protect his shield. Meanwhile, Zemo had already slipped away in the chaos. The warriors, having failed to capture their target, let everyone else go. This battle took a severe toll on John's pride. In the face of absolute strength, he felt so weak and insignificant. John then thought about the vial of serum. Would he choose to inject it into himself? The power broker threatened Karli to hand over the serum, but the serum had already been destroyed, so she couldn't comply. Meanwhile, the US government continued to hunt her down. In this dilemma, Karli threatened Falcon with Sarah's life to meet her alone. After receiving the news, Falcon and the Winter Soldier rushed to the meeting location. During their conversation, Karli invited Falcon to join the Flag Smashers, promising not to harm his sister. Just as they were negotiating, Karli discovered through satellite that John was approaching the Flag Smashers' stronghold. Falcon immediately realized that Karli was stalling for time. He signaled for the Winter Soldier to provide backup. At the same time, John had already collided head-on with the Flag Smashers. Facing their attack, he raised his shield to fight back, but the Flag Smashers were too fast. They quickly vanished without a trace. John's flying shield missed its target. At that moment, Falcon swooped down to provide support. But unexpectedly, John's combat power had dramatically increased in a short time. He kicked a Flag Smasher away with a single blow. He easily bent a steel pipe as thick as his arm. Falcon felt a surge of unease in his heart. It was clear that John had injected the super serum, but this wasn't the time for words. The two chased into the main hall. 2 more Flag Smashers ambushed them from behind. Falcon and John managed to evade the attack. At that moment, the Winter Soldier also arrived on the scene. The 3 engaged in a fierce battle with the Flag Smashers. However, John still showed a flaw. He was ambushed from behind by a Flag Smasher. Karli rushed up with a knife, ready to finish off John. But unexpectedly, Hawking appeared just in time to block the fatal blow. He was knocked into a stone pillar by Karli's punch and quickly stopped breathing. Everyone was stunned in place. Karli realized she had killed an innocent person and quickly fled the building. Looking at the deceased, Hawking, John was filled with immense sorrow. He immediately chased after her. At that moment, he had lost all reason. The new Captain America committed murder on the street. His shield, a symbol of justice, was stained with blood. This scene was captured by the onlookers. Falcon and the Winter Soldier arrived at the scene. They were shocked to see this unfold before them. Was someone like John truly worthy of being the new Captain America? Perhaps everyone already had the answer in their hearts. Afterwards, John regretted his impulsive actions, but it was too late to take it back. Seeing John on the verge of emotional collapse, Falcon and the Winter Soldier hoped he would surrender the shield, but he remained stubbornly unyielding. He even thought they wanted to steal his glory. Recalling their past ridicule, John could no longer suppress his anger. A fierce battle was about to erupt. John, having injected the serum, was now immensely powerful. Even against two opponents, he was not at a disadvantage. He seized the opportunity to use his shield to knock the Winter Soldier away. The Winter Soldier fell to the ground, unable to get up. Falcon shot a grappling hook in an attempt to seize the shield, but John's strength was overwhelming. He yanked him down from the air. Under the influence of the serum, John had already lost his sanity. He broke Falcon's wings apart. As the shield was about to come crashing down, the Winter Soldier woke up just in time to save Falcon. The two sides engaged in another fierce battle. Falcon and the Winter Soldier worked together to finally subdue John. They successfully took the shield away. Although John was unwilling, he felt powerless. The shield returned to Falcon's hands once again. He wiped the blood off the shield. He finally realized how foolish his earlier decisions had been, what the true meaning of this shield really was. Perhaps at that moment, Falcon finally understood. John's public act of murder caused a huge uproar. He was brought before a military court. The government stripped him of his Captain America title. They demanded that he return the shield. How tragic it was. The government had created him but could easily destroy him. His dignity was trampled upon. Only his wife remained by his side, consistently. At that moment, a mysterious woman named Val approached him. She was indeed Madame Hydra. She not only knew that John had injected the serum, but also felt great sympathy for his dilemma. She manipulated John with her words, reigniting his inner rage. Then she left him a blank business card, telling him to wait for her call. The Winter Soldier found Zemo alone. Zemo was mourning his deceased family. Seeing the Winter Soldier and the Wakandan warrior approach, Zemo did not resist and willingly followed them back to prison. Before leaving, the Winter Soldier asked the warrior to help make new gear for Falcon. He believed Falcon would indeed inherit the shield. Sure enough, after all that had happened, Falcon finally understood why Captain America entrusted the shield to him. Only those with good intentions and a sense of justice could be worthy of the shield and become a qualified successor. Yet he still felt lost, unsure of what to do. He could only temporarily return to his hometown. One day, the Winter Soldier arrived at the docks with a large box of gear. These were the weapons he had commissioned from Wakanda. He hoped they would aid Falcon on the battlefield, but Falcon lacked the courage to open the box at that moment. The Winter Soldier said nothing more. He simply began to guide Falcon in training. With his help, Falcon finally learned how to use the shield. He truly inherited the identity of Captain America. As they spent day by day together, he and the Winter Soldier gradually understood and trusted each other. Thus, once the right and left arms of Steve became the best partners for each other. Meanwhile, Karli decided to take the initiative to strike. She contacted the criminal organization FAL to acquire a batch of lethal weapons. Then she gathered all the flag smashers to prepare for an attack at the Global Repatriation Council. Soon they invaded the Capitol building. Upon hearing this news, Falcon opened the gearbox gifted by the Winter Soldier. Inside was a brand new combat suit. He would go to thwart the conspiracy as Captain America. The Winter Soldier and Karli had already arrived at the scene. They prepared to assist Falcon in completing the mission. Suddenly, a thick smoke spread throughout the area. The meeting room was thrown into chaos. The lawmakers hurriedly fled towards the exits, but the entire building was surrounded by Flag Smasher followers. At that moment, a flying shield whizzed through the air. Falcon made a stunning entrance. Upon landing, Falcon immediately contacted the Winter Soldier and Karli to begin evacuating the crowd. But the next second, he was ambushed from behind by the leader of FAL, Baron. The two fought fiercely with each other. Their opponent was exceptionally strong. They were locked in a battle that was hard to resolve. The Winter Soldier and Karli could only focus on evacuating the crowd first. However, the Flag Smashers disguised themselves as a rescue team. They kidnapped several members of Congress. The Winter Soldier immediately jumped into a vehicle to chase after them. Falcon, upon hearing the news, was no longer interested in fighting. He used his shield to fend off the enemies and smashed through the glass, taking flight from the building. He pursued the helicopter filled with the kidnapped lawmakers. An aerial battle unfolded. Red Wing successfully identified that one of the kidnapped lawmakers had received flight training. Falcon immediately hatched a plan, but unexpectedly, a police helicopter came head-on, trying to intercept the Flag Smasher's helicopter. However, it collided with them. The police helicopter immediately lost control and began to plummet to the ground. Falcon quickly flew in to rescue them. He successfully saved 2 pilots. Then he soared into the sky to continue pursuing the Flag Smasher's helicopter. Just as he was about to catch up, the helicopter opened fire on him again. As Falcon skillfully dodged, He contacted the trained lawmaker through Red Wing, preparing to coordinate with her. The next second, the shield penetrated the cockpit door, knocking the pilot into the sea. The lawmaker rushed into the cockpit and tried his best to take control of the helicopter. Everyone on board was saved. The air rescue operation was a complete success. Meanwhile, on the ground, the Winter Soldier caught up with the transport truck holding the lawmakers and fought with the Flag Smashers. Karli immediately ordered her men to ignite a transport truck. The Winter Soldier rushed forward to save them. He pounded on the truck door frantically. He managed to rescue everyone just before the explosion. Karli intended to take the opportunity to escape, but unexpectedly, John, who had been missing for days, suddenly appeared. He was holding the Captain America shield. What was going on here? It turned out that in order to avenge his good friend Hawking, John, with Val's help, had adapted to the super serum in his body. He had also replicated a new shield. He was ready to settle the score with the Flag Smashers. He hurled the shield at Karli, but she kicked it aside. After all, it was a homemade shield, and its power was significantly reduced. The Flag Smashers swarmed him. However, with the serum in his system, John was fearless, taking them down one by one. Yet, two fists couldn't fight against four hands. Even though John's power had greatly increased, he was still overwhelmed by their sheer numbers. He was quickly caught off guard and knocked down. The Flag Smasher held a metal rod, ready to deliver a fatal blow to John. At a life-and-death moment, the Winter Soldier arrived just in time to save him, but he was kicked off the building by Karli. John faced off against 3 Flag Smashers alone. His anger greatly enhanced his combat power. After easily taking down the 3, he once again set his sights on Karli. After several exchanges, Karli grew wary of John's strength. She had no intention of fighting and wanted to retreat quickly, so she seized the moment to kick John down. She quickly ran towards another transport truck holding the lawmakers. She floored the gas pedal and sped away. She jumped out of the truck just before it was about to fall off the building, watching the vehicle hanging from the building's beams. The Winter Soldier below had no way to help. John rushed over at that moment. Upon seeing this, he fell silent instantly. He was caught in inner turmoil. His initial intention was to kill Karli to avenge his brother, but looking at the precarious vehicle, he let go of his hatred. He discarded the deformed homemade shield and ran towards the transport truck. He exerted all his effort to pull the truck back to safety. However, at that moment, several Flag Smashers suddenly appeared and dragged John down from the building. The transport truck lost balance again and began to fall. The lawmakers screamed in terror. It looked like it would be a disastrous crash, but suddenly, the truck stopped midair. A shield appeared at the front of the truck. It was Falcon arriving just in time. He used his body to brace against the falling truck. With Red Wing's help, he pushed the truck back onto the platform. He saved the lives of everyone in the truck. The onlookers cheered and applauded excitedly. Seeing their plan thwarted, Karli grabbed a steel pipe and threw it at the Winter Soldier, but he caught it barehanded. Just when it seemed everything was settled, unexpectedly, a smoke grenade fell from above, successfully covering Karli's escape. Falcon and the others immediately gave chase. Using thermal goggles, they quickly tracked Karli and followed her to an underground passage. But the underground passage was intricate and complex. They quickly lost track of her. At that moment, Karli had met up with Karli. What they didn't expect was that Karli was actually the power broker. She was the mastermind behind everything. She had been funding Karli from the shadows. Her intention was to use the Flag Smashers to control the world, but she didn't expect Karli to betray her. Karli stated that their ideologies were different. She didn't want to control the world, but just wanted to help the refugees. These words were overheard by Baron, who was hiding in the shadows. He immediately jumped out and offered to deal with Karli for Kelly, but he demanded 4 times the payment. Otherwise, he would reveal Kelly's identity to the public. It was obvious that Kelly didn't want to deal with him at all and shot him instead. However, she was also injured by Karli. Falcon arrived upon hearing the commotion. He tried to persuade Karli to calm down, but she was only intent on killing Kelly. Falcon flew forward to stop her. Karli was completely enraged. She threw a brick at Falcon. Then she wildly swung punches at him, but Falcon didn't want to fight her. He only raised his shield to defend. He urged her to calm down, but this only made Karli angrier. She couldn't understand Falcon, who also hated the government's inaction. She couldn't grasp the rules governing the world. She angrily swung her fists. Finally, she knocked Falcon to the ground. She raised her gun, ready to end Falcon's life, but Kelly's bullet was quicker. 3 shots ended Karli's life. In her final moments, Karli finally realized the truth, but it was already too late. Falcon looked at Karli in his arms, filled with mixed emotions. The flag smashers were finally captured. Falcon completed his mission successfully. He gained recognition from both the public and the government. Using his position, he convinced the government that they should not simply drive away the refugees, but should help them return to their homes. The Winter Soldier looked on with satisfaction because he knew Falcon had understood the meaning of being Captain America. He would take on that responsibility in the future. After the storm settled, the remaining flag smashers were put onto prison transport. But during transport, an unexpected event occurred. A bomb exploded, shattering the vehicle. The flag smashers on the truck were annihilated. In prison, Zemo heard the news, and a knowing smile spread across his face. It seemed that the Hydra conspiracy had not come to an end. In the end, Falcon revisited Isaiah. He took him to the museum. There, a statue of Isaiah stood, honoring his contributions to the country. Isaiah was instantly moved to tears. He excitedly hugged Falcon, thanking him for everything he had done. The Winter Soldier arrived at his friend Nakajima's home. He confessed that he was the one who killed his son. Although Nakajima could never forgive him, he didn't want to continue avoiding the truth. Then, he sent a thank you letter to his therapist. He stated that he had gone to apologize to everyone on his list of atonement. He had apologized to each one of them. After that, he would start a brand new life. Everything had settled down. Falcon and the Winter Soldier stood side by side, their eyes filled with hope for the future. As part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, this series marked the beginning of an era of new and old IP transitions. Although it was criticized for a slower plot than before, it still maintained the excellent production quality in action scenes and special effects. It continued the high-quality production seen in previous works. Overall, the storyline was more grounded in reality, yet it was reasonable, interesting, and filled with twists. The action scenes were thrilling and satisfying. The ending was nearly perfect. However, the post-credit scenes still laid the groundwork for future plots. The power broker Karli received a pardon and became a CIA operative again, but she was attempting to find buyers to steal American weaponry and military secrets. It seems that the upcoming story will still be exciting. Interested viewers can check out the original series The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. If you enjoy my channel, please click to subscribe to my channel.